This video is the run where I earned the Rapid Run achievement in Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop, which involves beating a run in under 45 minutes of daytime. And I'm going to say right now, as of this moment, March 7th when I did this run, I'm pretty sure that frantic fixing mode is bugged. I did multiple runs that I think should have qualified for frantic fixing. I timed, I recorded, I streamed these runs, and I did not get the achievement, and I don't know why. So I reported that in their Discord, and then because I had seen other people get it on focus mode, I tried it for the first time, and you know what? It worked. Which sucks for me because I love frantic fixing mode. It's where I live. I love the tension and the truly frantic vibes, but I'm not going to complain about getting an achievement just because I had to play on a different mode. But I'm going to talk through this run, what my strategy was, some tips on how to get this achievement for yourself. By the way, I'm Savalian. I make videos about games, development, and creativity, and I love this game. It's basically perfect, aside from the, frantic fixing bug. I just think it's fantastic. I will also warn you here, this video will definitely have spoilers. This is end game content. I'll be talking about things coming up throughout the video and how I'm preparing for them. So feel free to play the game and then come back to this video later after you've had a chance to fully experience it. Going into this run, I have something like 60 hours of playtime, and I have 100%ed the game in terms of content, both main endings, all faction endings, and all the other achievements. This achievement will be extremely challenging if you are not very familiar with all the modules. You can probably get by without FTL stuff. Reactor stuff you'll probably want to know just in case you have to take a reactor job, but you also can't go fast if you have to stop and look things up. So the knowledge for how to fix most of the modules in the game should be in your brain ready to go. That's the only way you're going to get this achievement. You will want to have the Ascension mostly memorized. There's no room for mistakes. Like literally, you'll fail the whole thing if you make a single mistake. And I believe that you have to do the Ascension ending. I don't think any of the other faction endings count as beating a run. But you can do it in God mode, or you can do it for Uncle Chop, the way I understand it. I started this run with several trading cards in the temporal storage, though I did get a previous run that didn't pop the achievement because it was on frantic fixing without cards. So the cards are not necessary, but they do help a lot. And they've just added a vending machine that helps you find cards better. So now there's no excuse. You could just grind out a few and then start a fresh run with several cards. The general goal for this achievement is to do as little as possible while making rent. So you want to clock out each day as early as you can. You just need to do one job and then you're able to clock out. And the job does not have to be completely finished. The unfortunate thing is that on focus fixing mode, I believe the penalties are higher, so it's kind of a trade-off. You have to really know how much things cost to make sure you're not going over, but that's the goal, to do as little work as possible while still just making rent. I start each day by loading up my inventory with some commonly used repair items, and on the first day you can go a little bit into debt. It's fine. The only time you can't go into debt, as far as I know, is on Ascension Day. Pumps are one of the most useful items. I like to have at least one. I like to have a heatsink, a set of canisters for oil changes. I used to just keep the oil and the empty canister, but then I kept getting absolutely derailed by the dirty oil chunks that are impossible to see until it's too late. So I started keeping the cleaner in my pockets as well. And as far as I know, for the achievement, clocked in time is the only time that counts, which is why the achievement is under 45 minutes, but this video is certainly much longer than that. You can and should use nights to prepare for the next day and do setup like this. I'm also not sure if time spent in the job select menu counts as clocked in time. I just tried to go as fast as possible because I had so many attempts that should have qualified. I started getting really paranoid about what counts in the achievement time. So it's probably not as complicated as all that. I'm probably just paranoid because of the bug. But just in case, I try to go as quickly as possible during the entire day. The first rent is really easy to make, especially if you get pipe bombs. So the only reason you really want to linger here is if you need money for the vending machines. But this is why I brought the trading cards, so that I could get the vending machines like day one and not really worry about doing any jobs, any extra jobs during first rent. So day one I picked the job that looked the quickest. I rolled the dice a little bit with the mystery job, but it ended up being a toilet fix, which I think is the fastest job in the game if you have a pump on hand. And you only ever need a pump, you never need any additional items in your pocket, so fairly quick. I also got lucky and found a card in there, a little treat just for me. And after completing the job, I also wait to talk to the customer. And this is another thing that may not be necessary, but I'm paranoid because I wasn't able to get the achievement on frantic fixing mode. And I was clocking out before talking to the customer. And I'm just worried that that bugged something out. So I waited the few seconds here just in case and clocked out after talking to them. Day one ended up clocking in at 53 seconds, bringing our total time to 53 seconds. I turned in my card, grabbed several from storage. I decided to turn in 4 total. If I run into trouble, I have a few more in storage still that I could tap into later if I need them. Each card sells for 200, so with the day's job I ended up with 827 coins on day one. And I have a sort of build I like to use, and as I was working on this achievement, actually today when I'm doing this run, a big update came out, the first big update that this game has seen, and it added a bunch of vending machines. It made some tweaks to existing ones. It added a couple more of the Omen upgrades. I have not had a chance to really play with any of those, so I'm just doing what I know. So we're not going to actually be using any of the new vending machines, but there are some that I think could be really useful. But what I want to end up with is the 3 machines you need to do all the main jobs. So encoder, pancake maker, and the gumball machine specifically for the Ascension. And then I also like to have Chunky and the sidecar for my like money-based vending machines. And the Chunky machine is critical for me. They did nerf it a little bit with the update, but it's still very good. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the rotation on day one, so that's one downside to the additional vending machines, is that it's harder to get specific ones because there's more in the rotation. Day 2 is Explosion Day. Don't forget to set up your machines if you have ordered them. I completely forgot this time. It didn't end up mattering that much, but I did forget. On day 2, I put the fire out as quickly as I can, fix the oil situation, which appears to always be the same. But even if it's not, I have my kit in my pockets ready to go. And then right after fixing the oil, letting Druce leave, I clock out. The daytime for day 2 was 1 minute exactly, bringing us to a total of 1:53. These early jobs do not pay very well, and you don't need that much for this rent, as I said, so skip as much as you can. The night of day 2, I was able to get the Chunky machine, and then I actually remembered to set up all my machines. Morning of day 3, I did remember to go out and set up the Chunky machine, which is really important, especially if you end up getting the pipe bomb job, because it gives you such a fat bonus for having the Chunky machine activated. And great news for us, we did get the pipe bomb job. And once you learn to read this Venn diagram, this job is so easy to do without getting blown up, and it pays better and it's faster. So really you want this job, especially if you're speedrunning. If you do get the other one, it does help if you have the 3 tomfoolery levels in your pockets. I have them in temporal storage, but did not think to grab them ahead of time for this day, but I have in the past. But that's the only thing that the other day 3 job really has that can trip you up. Immediately after the pipe bomb job, I clock out, bringing day 3's time to 1 minute 4 seconds. Total time 2 minutes 57 seconds. So we've completed first rent in under 3 minutes, which I have done before. You really do need some cards to do it if you want to have your like build set up correctly. If I don't have cards in advance, this usually takes me around 5 minutes for rent 1, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I also don't know how the speedrun achievement works with the new Omen upgrade that lets you sleep through Rent 1. I don't really know how that works. Maybe it makes everything much easier, but you know, in this case it would only save us 3 minutes, which is a small portion of the overall 45. As I do my preparation each night, I also check the shop for sales on items that I need for the Ascension. The only caveat here is that right now you do not want to buy the FTL Gem X early, because I have heard from multiple people that putting that gem into storage overnight causes it to bug out, which can make you fail your Ascension. So it's just not worth the risk to get all the way to the end and then lose on a bug. So even though it is the most expensive part, I just pay full price the day of, but I collect all the other things, the canisters, the motor parts. I don't usually buy the wires because I find the wires a bit annoying in storage. They have a weird hitbox, but I try to get as much as I can prepared, and I get it on sale if possible so that I can pay less money, obviously. Going into Rent 2, I know I'm going to start getting more involved jobs and earning more money, so I do heavier prep. I include light bulbs, one with blinker fluid. I prepare some fuel tanks, and I even grabbed a heating filament and some snail food to swap in for the rebreather, which I only started doing recently after someone had recommended it in a Steam forum. Day 4 starts. I take the bigger job with the idea that if I do this one big job, it will pay well enough that I won't have to take a second job. My mistake here is that I took the job with the star map and I did not have any of the cards prepared, so I do have to encode one on the fly, which is kind of a waste of time. I also really try to avoid the AI job because I'm extremely bad at getting the emotion right. This is definitely like my worst job aside from FTL, which I haven't really done. In a lot of cases, I found that in order to get the emotion right, you do have to like crash it and start over, which takes even more time. So usually, what I do is if the emotion is wrong, I will just eat that fee because it's just not worth the like 2 minutes, 3 minutes that it's gonna take me to get it to line up. It's not really worth it that much. And as I work through larger jobs like this, I try to have a peek at a few modules so I can gather the supplies I need all at once. I'm not a perfect speedrunner by any means. In fact, I don't really do much speedrunning at all, but you really want to try to minimize the time you spend running back to the shop. So if you can collect things for multiple jobs at once, that can only help. The rebreather frequently has a lot wrong with it because there are so many different pieces, but that means it pays better. So if you have a lot of this stuff on hand, you can get that extra pay without having to spend the extra time. Having the filament on hand was pretty helpful this time, and trees you kind of just have to deal with because they're too big to really keep on hand, and you usually need a bunch of them. If you don't need all 3, you probably need 2. I don't think I've ever just needed 1 tree, so you know, it's not something you can prepare for, but if everything else goes very quickly and you just have to do a quick tree run, it's not so bad. I got really lucky with AI on this one because it literally just needed to be turned on. Everything else was fine. But I do have to take the fee hit on a later one this run, I believe. With day 4, we ended at 4 minutes and 35 seconds for a total time of 7 minutes and 32 seconds. Day 4 is one of my longer days because I'm really trying to make sure I can make the rent payments. We could have probably gotten away with doing a smaller job on this one, but that's assuming that you were able to get your vending machines at this point. Otherwise, if you still need to get your chunky machine, or you know, some of your machines that you need to finish the jobs, you're gonna probably need to do a little bit extra. At this point in the run, you also want to start thinking about having some pancake stacks on hand for common modules because you're going to start getting jobs that require the pancakes. I like to keep the oil, AI, and rebreather pancakes in my temporal storage. Sometimes I'll even keep the oil one in my pocket, but as we become more likely to get reactor jobs, I also like to make sure I have enough space to hold the reactor in my pocket so that I don't blow up. So it's kind of a trade-off. Day 5, I got the, I forget the name of this faction, the war faction, came to try and invite me to join their cause, so I had to say no. We also got an extra flimp in the clock-in machine. Don't mind if I do. If I didn't mention it, by the way, I like to have the sidecar vending machine, even though it's not, like, immediately helping earn money. Because otherwise you are at the mercy of the game with the chunky machine. You just have to take whatever comes up, which can be pretty bad sometimes. So I think it's worth it to have a second option, even though it does take up like a whole space in your garage. Today I took the smaller job, though it did have AI and the star map again, so not really the best pick for me, but we'll make it work. The AI parts for the motors take up so much room in inventory, you just have to kind of accept that you're making multiple runs here, but I try to find ways to multitask. I also cleared some pocket space, dropping the flimp card in my storage while I was over there. I briefly considered trying to adjust the AI emotions, and then I realized that all the value bars were maxed out. I think you have to crash it at that point. I don't think you can reduce the bars with the XP cards, and that's a whole thing. So I decided to just take the hit and leave the emotion wrong, which is like twice as much in focus mode as it is in frantic fixing mode. Once again, I needed a star map cartridge, but that's okay. I also completely forgot that I put this extra circuit in my repair storage. As I was rewatching, I noticed I put it in there. I never got that back out. And as we get into the parts of the run that don't go quite as fast, I'm not going to have as much commentary, but lucky for me, the game has great music. Day 5, we ended at 4 minutes and 4 seconds for a total time of 11 minutes and 36 seconds. Doing pretty good. Next up, I know we have Run 2, which is the Hogmobile. I don't know the official name for it, which means we're making late night pancakes. You can prepare all the stuff that you need for this boss fight in advance, with some minor exceptions. I filled fuel tanks, I made all 3 pancakes, I had my oil change stuff ready, and the thing that you cannot always prepare for is that I crammed a fuse in there. For the RGB, sometimes you need fuses, sometimes you need to redo the fluid, though those things are somewhat more rare, so you might just get lucky. I'm not totally sure when time starts on some of these days because you don't clock in, and I had my doubts after failing on frantic mode. So for the Uncle Chops days, the timing's probably not going to be exact, but I would frequently start my stopwatch right when I woke up just to make sure I got all the time it could possibly be counting. But for the video, since I can look at the video and kind of see when I start, I think I will count from when the dialogue ends and we can start work. I think that makes the most sense. I've played this round so many times I could probably do it in my sleep. I just run through all these hog modules one by one, quick as I can. I've got a lot of practice with these, and I've got everything that I need in my pockets already. And I didn't notice until the very end, but I got the job with the colors being wrong in the RGB module, so I had to refill the red. This never looks quite right to me, but the instructions say to use a liquid to like block 30% of the canister. So I just put oil in there. YOLO. Hopefully that doesn't muck with the colors, I don't know. But day 6, we ended at 2 minutes and 42 seconds, which I think is one of my better times for this day, with a total time of 14 minutes and 18 seconds. We also have, like, on Uncle Chop days, where you don't clock in, the clock out machine is all messed up, and I'm never sure if I'm supposed to clock out, if it doesn't matter. So sometimes I clock out and sometimes I don't. After the boss fight, it takes me a minute to get my inventory all set up for the next day, but it's worth it to take this time. Things go so much faster when you're prepared. Okay, day 7, coming up on the end here. Last rent, technically. Again, I picked the visibly smaller task and also avoided the reactor job. I'm fairly confident with reactors at this point, but it is better not to risk it. And it can be time consuming because if you have to fully remove the reactor, it takes up a lot of room in your inventory. So usually I have to run back to storage to drop it off. Like if I need to do fuel, which is usually when you have to remove the reactors because the ship needs fuel, there's just not room in my inventory for the fuel tanks and for the reactor. So it's an extra trip that I just would like to avoid. So this job ended up being oil, rebreather, and VR. VR can be a little annoying and I don't think it pays that well, but it's pretty quick and it doesn't really need any materials. You can just do it. So it's a decent choice for a speed run if you don't need a lot of money in that part of the run. The rebreather did have a lot wrong with it, but once again, it goes so fast when you have like half of the pieces you need just in your pockets. I did had to run and get a pancake, a second snail, and a few trees. And because so much was wrong with the rebreather, this paid super well. I also didn't realize until I was watching the video back, the trees do just fly right off when it's spinning like that, which is pretty funny. I thought I miscounted when I didn't bring enough trees back. We ended day 7 at 3 minutes 50 seconds for a total of 18 minutes and 8 seconds. I remade the pancake I used for the rebreather, restocked the temporal storage, refreshed my oil canister setup, and got to bed. I also noticed during this run that I got all the flamingos. And then the day after all the flamingos, I got the flamingo bonfire. I have no idea what this is with the flamingos, but I love it. This game has so many like weird little things. Weird, silly little things that I still need to see and experience, I feel like. One of the jobs on day 8 was extremely easy, headlights, toilet, fuel, so I just grabbed that one. I had both of the light bulbs I needed ready in my inventory, and this ship only had one headlight, which is weird but also really nice. I also found an extra card in the fuel tank. Perfect. I didn't prepare the water fuel in advance. Some people will do this to really polish up their strategy, but I didn't feel like it was necessary, so I just fill them when I get them, and I will usually keep the electric fuel on hand. This job did not pay well at all, but that's totally fine. Just keep an eye on your money. You really don't need much more than rent, especially with the bonus day that comes before Ascension. And also, as far as I can tell, on focus mode you don't need to pay for extra time on the Ascension, which saves you quite a bit of money. We ended day 8 at 1 minute and 54 seconds for a total of 20 minutes and 2 seconds. Going into day 9 at around 20 minutes feels really good. This is where I like to be. Day 9 is the competency test, which gave me some trouble. I'll try not to harp on this too much here, but I'm pretty sure my first attempt was bugged. I'll play it so you can see what I did. I failed on the second step. Because it told me to move the knobs to the left in order, but skip ones that were already left. So I flipped K2 and went fine. For some reason, when I went for K4, it just yelled at me immediately as I was dragging the knob to the left. And then it happened again on K5 and I failed the test. And I was so bummed. And I actually wasn't planning to save scum, but I was so upset that I just turned the game off, And I thought for some reason that it would start me back like sort of where I stopped at the end of the day, but instead I realized that it put me at the beginning of the day. So I just ran with it. I still wasn't really sure why it failed me, so I was fully expecting it to fail again, but the second time it just worked. So I literally did the exact same thing and it didn't strike me out the second time, so I just finished it. And this is something that you can do as well, specifically on the Ascension. I've used this strategy where as long as you quit to main menu before you've actually died, you can retry a particular day from the beginning. You know, some people will choose not to do that because it's kind of cheesy, but for some of these challenges, I feel like you're going through like 30 minutes of game to get to this point. You know, if you count the non-timed part, I think is probably like 45 minutes at this point. So like, I don't know, you decide what you want to do with your time. If you want to do the run over because you feel like it's been tarnished, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you, but it is something that you can do if you feel like you need to. And I did not do it intentionally here, but in the end I'm glad that I was able to come back and redo it and not get kicked out by that bug, because that really felt unfair. I will mention some gotchas here. I didn't realize that focus mode has different instructions for this test, and they are all more complicated. So there's fewer instructions, but they are much more complicated. I've played frantic mode dozens of times and never saw instructions as complicated as these ones. There are some about like only turning the knobs that are prime numbers, only turning knobs that are even, turning the only knob you haven't touched in the instructions so far. So you have to sort of keep track of all this stuff in your brain, or you have to like run back through it and think through each of the steps, which can take time. In frantic mode, all the instructions are quite simple, and the trick is just that there's a lot of them and you have to do them, you know, under 8 minutes. So frantic mode one I can usually do in about 4 minutes. But this one we ended at 4 minutes and 21 seconds, bringing our total time to 24 minutes and 23 seconds. And another thing I'll mention just real quick is that some people will choose to fail this test on purpose to get the speed boost. The only thing is that you have to pay the fine and still be able to pay the 2,500 rent, which is a lot of money. And I believe the fine when I failed that first attempt was over 1,000 gold, over 1,000 coins, whatever it is. So you really, really need to be on your game if you want to fail this on purpose and still pay rent, but it is an option. But I usually just do the test because I find it easier. I've never really had a problem with this test before, with obviously the exception of the bugged knobs. So I just find it faster and better for money to just do it and get it done. At this point, I had reset my stopwatch after the competency failure, so I did not have a good handle on how much time I had spent. All the numbers I'm giving you now are from the recording, so I was able to look at the timestamps and stuff and see like when I started and ended each day. But when I was running this, I had no idea how close I was to making the achievement, so I just kind of went with it and hoped for the best. I know from all my previous attempts that the ascension usually takes me somewhere around 10 to 12 minutes. If nothing goes really wrong, sometimes I mess up on the pressurizing of the payload, and that usually screws me over, but looking at the numbers now that I can see the total at this point, I'm in a great spot because we just have one more bonus day followed by the ascension. And I've done pretty well with money, so I don't really need the bonus day at this point. But if you're doing a run without cards in advance, this is where you really want to make sure that you have enough extra cash to buy the supplies you need for the ascension job. Because if you overspend during the ascension, it is an immediate fail. And then if in the future they fix this so you can do it on frantic mode, you also need extra money to pay for, the couple minutes that you're going to be going over the 8-minute timer, assuming you can't do it in 8 minutes. I don't actually know. I have never gotten close to 8 minutes. That feels like really fast to me, but I don't know. Maybe there's probably someone out there who can do it. I haven't done the math on this, but you'll need like a little over 600, I think, for the FTL gem, at least 2 canisters, a full set of the motors, the rotators, and a rubber band, a pump and 2 gas filters, several sets of wires, I think like 5 wires total, a few heat sinks, an integrated circuit. Is that everything? That might be everything. So it's a good chunk of change, but if you are on focus mode at least, I don't think you need the extra money to pay for time. So something, I don't know, what's that, like 1,000 coins altogether? Something like that. But we're getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit. We're still on day 10, bonus day. All prices are doubled today, and I'm doing fine with money, so I picked the smallest job and I got it done as fast as I could. I got another Flem card. It's been a pretty lucky run. I've had some runs where I don't get any cards at all, so getting 3 of them feels really lucky. But this one, I didn't really need it, so I just saved it for later. On this job, I got VR. I did get the box warehouse, which is the slowest one, but not too bad. I had to fix the toilet, nice quick job, and then I had to try and fix the AI. This one was a lucky one. All the mechanical parts were busted and the pancake was wrong. And usually, when everything else is wrong, they don't also hit you with the wrong emotion, because that would be just a huge job. And that's what happened here. Once I replaced all the mechanical parts, the emotion was fine. It worked just fine. I made an insane amount of money from this job, mostly because of the AI. Definitely overkill for this run, but this was the shortest job available, so this is gonna do the trick. We ended day 10, our last actual day, at 3 minutes 43 seconds, bringing our total to 28 minutes and 6 seconds. Also, I did all this time math like by myself in my head, so I hope it's right. It's got to be at least close, but you know, if it's a little off, don't come at me. But all we have left to do is the ascension. I've done this several times at this point, and I've really narrowed down my process after struggling really hard with it initially. So I'll just talk through what I do, and you can decide what you want to take away from this. I will say that the instructions list says a lot about doing things in a specific order, and it lists them in a specific order, but only some of that order is actually required. Basically, the only thing that you must do in order is that you must have the cassette playing before you send the payload, and you must do the VR import before you do the VR. But other than that, you can shuffle things around a little bit to make them make a little bit more sense. To start, I picked up the phone number card and the little cartridge for the VR importer, and then I have my heat sinks, the circuit, and some wires, and then I've just prepared my blood and coffee canisters for later, and I have that all in my pockets as I go into this. I go get the gem from the shop so I don't encounter the storage bug, and I do everything in the logistics module all at once instead of doing like half of it and then coming back later like the instructions say. Just make sure you get the configuration right. I have heard of people like getting one of these knobs in the wrong spot and failing the entire thing, so take a moment, double check. You have a second to double check things. Once logistics is done, I do the phone. Usually I forget the gumball. I forgot the gumball today and I had to go get one. If I remember in advance, I will just grab like 4 or 5 gumballs, keep them in my pockets, and hope one of them fits. That's usually a good number, is like 4. I feel like he usually has at least one that fits. I also have the instructions open here just so I don't forget any steps. It's nice to just like walk through the steps and look at them as a reminder. There's a lot going on here, and it's easy to forget like the minor steps. Like I feel like I've forgotten the wire before, so I just go through these instructions and make sure that little green light shows up when I finish the phone task, and then I move on. I can put the card back in storage to have extra room, and then I do VR import and then the VR right after it, and I do that next. You need a lot of pocket space to carry all the motor pieces, so usually I'll grab the scythe, get that in first, and then go get the motor parts. But this time I somehow managed to make it all fit in my pockets at one time. This run, I toyed with the possibility of doing some setup for the next job while I was waiting for the importer percentage to tick up. This is risky because you can't see what it's at if you're not looking at it, but I was able to go grab the heart and put it into its box while importing, which is kind of nice because it's so big that it's hard to double that task up with some of the other tasks. I don't think I saved a ton of time doing this, maybe a few seconds, but I bet there are ways you can do this that will actually help a little bit. After scanning, I do the VR minigame. This is my least favorite part, maybe of this whole game. I failed on this dozens of times when I first attempted it. I am not good at shooters, and there's something about the aiming in this one that feels very strange to me, so I just kept missing and dying. I have developed a strategy that mostly works for me where I circle the outside of the arena and just keep shooting. You can aim better if you're not moving, but if you're not moving, it's also easier for them to catch up with you, so, you know, whatever works for you. This strategy works for me most of the time, but I do still fail on this one occasionally. Next up is the heart. Like I said, I'm using the god items, so I don't need to go get it from the guy, but that only, you know, saves me like maybe a minute, probably less if you've practiced the heart removal job. I had a really hard time with the heart when I first learned it, so after, you know, so much struggle, I have all these steps absolutely burned into my brain. You want coffee first, close paddles, maximum power, then you want blood, 5 power, 1 cycle away from the farthest setting, and then you need a new fuse for each shock. So I've got this down to a science. I also take a moment at the end to turn off the switch, make sure the needle is removed, turn off the power lock. I don't know if these steps matter, but I had some failures on the Ascension in the past that I wasn't really sure what the failure was. I wish it would tell you somewhere specifically what you failed on so that you could learn from it, but I do all these things just in case. Maybe it's superstitious. Finally, it's payload time. We get our big bullet, our pump assembly, cleaner canisters, and wires. I like to have the book up during this as well, just as a visual reminder of all the steps that I need to do. I do the pump first. I make sure to turn it on after the gas filters are in place. Plug the canisters in, plug the wires in. Then I put the bullet in the chamber and pressurize. And I realized too late that these canisters need to get all glowy. I think I messed it up a few times and didn't realize what was wrong, and I think it was the pressure that was wrong. After pressurizing, I get the cassette and I put it in. I just pop open the thing, close it, press play. I haven't had any like random problems come up when I do it this way. I wait just long enough to ensure the music is playing so I can hear it, and then I fire the payload and slam those levers. The end. I'm not sure when the time like stops ticking, but I marked it as when I finished moving the levers down, and that made Ascension Day take 10 minutes and 33 seconds for a total runtime of 38 minutes and 39 seconds. And I would guess that it's better than the other runs because I had more cards at the start, and also the competency test on this mode is a little bit shorter. The achievement pops after Druce watches us ascend. I was always curious when I could stop holding my breath to find out if it worked or not. So it's you know, after Druce lets us out of the little pod. I took a moment to cheer with glee, just a moment, and then we head to the other world to celebrate with our good friends. But there it is, the Rapid Run achievement in its entirety. This is, you know, you could see on screen, this is when I earned it. And I'm so glad I was finally able to get this. I worked so hard, and I was very, very frustrated when it wasn't working on frantic mode. But, you know, I love this game. I'm always looking for more chances to play it. And with that, I've gotten 100% Uncle Chop's Rocket Chop Steam achievements. And this achievement currently says that 0.3% of players have gotten it, which makes it my most rare Steam achievement, like, at all, total, out of all of them. Incredible. I love that for me. I know probably it's extremely rare because one of the modes is bugged, but, you know, I'm gonna take what I can get. But that's all I have for today. I'm sure this video is 1,000 years long, so I'm not gonna talk much more. But I hope it was helpful. I hope you got some good tips and you can earn this achievement for yourself as well. And I also hope you can see what a joy this game has been for me. I would recommend it to basically everyone. There is quite a learning curve, and if you're on PC using a mouse, it can be kind of hard on your hand and arm, depending on what kind of mouse you use, but it's so rewarding. The writing is excellent. The art is perfect. I adore this game. It's a really good one. But I'll be off now. That's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe because I'll be back soon with another video, and I hope to see you there. Alright, goodbye!